What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now this week we're going to be talking about the Fey Wanderer Ranger. Now, you might be looking through my playlist and say, you know, he normally goes in alphabetical order. And this one, you know, there's one in there, there's the Drake Warden that hasn't been done yet. What happened with that one? Well, I was going to have to skip either that one or this one in order to make sure that Gloomstalker ended up on Halloween. And so Drake Warden ended up being the one I skipped. So we will be catching that one again at the very end. Don't think I forgot about it, and don't think that I can't, you know, do my ABCs most of the time. So yeah, we're going to be doing this one today. We'll be doing Drake Warden at the very end of our Ranger series, which is really only a few weeks away. There aren't that many official Rangers, so this will be actually one of the quicker series that's out there. But yeah, I'm very excited to talk about this one. This is one that kind of went under my radar a little bit, and I don't see a lot of people really talking about this subclass, even though, you know, it came out in Tasha's, it's been out for a while. So I'm interested to see just how good this one is and how it stacks up versus the other Rangers. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch the channel are not subscribed, so please don't be one of those people. Help us to reach our goal of 4,000 by the end of this year. I really think that we can do it, but of course I need your help in order to get there. So make sure that you click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded, and share the video with your friends. So what is a Fey Wanderer Ranger? This is a really interesting take on the Ranger that draws power from the Feywild, and to me more specifically from an Archfey. There are a lot of features that we get in this subclass that really remind me of what an Archfey or just at least Fey creatures would really specialize in, and this allows you to be kind of the face of the party as a ranger, which is a little strange, but it's done in a very unique and interesting way. Will it be better than the other rangers though? Let's find out. At level 3, we actually get a bunch of different features on this subclass, but starting off we get Dreadful Strikes, and this just adds a little bit of extra damage onto our hits. So whenever we hit a creature with a weapon, we deal 1d4 extra psychic damage, and we can only apply this to a target once per turn. And of course, this goes up to 1d6 when we reach level 11. So I mean, extra damage is never going to be a bad thing on this, right? 1d4 on top of maybe your normal hit plus maybe a Hunter's Mark, something like that. Eventually it's a 1d6, that's cool. The only real drawback here is that you can't do this more than once to the same creature in a turn. You do have to spread it out to other creatures in order to hit more than one of these at a time. So I mean, it's fine, right? Of course, it is the same damage as Hunter's Mark once it gets to a higher level. And so yeah, like it's fine, right? It's okay. Extra d4 is fine. It is psychic damage, which is pretty good actually. So I don't know, this is decent. It's just free damage that I'm not gonna really be upset about, and it helps out that it goes up at level 11, even though that is a little bit late. So for something like this, I feel like I've got to go with a 7 out of 10. Like, it's good to get extra damage, it really is. But at the same time, you've got to be positioned amongst multiple creatures in order to get the full benefit of this, and that's probably not a great situation that you want to be in anyway. So for me to be getting smacked by multiple creatures in order to deal 1d4 extra damage or eventually 1d6, I don't know if that's necessarily worth it. Also at level 3, we get Fey Wanderer Magic. Now this is cool because we didn't actually have an expanded spell list when we talked about the Beastmaster last week. Of course, that'll be up in the iCard above for you to check out. But basically every ranger except for the PHB and the Drake Warden out of Fizzbands get an expanded spell list of extra spells that they get. It's normally one spell per spell slot level that you get. There's one that gives you 2, but that's a different story when we get to that. But so you get basically 5 free spells, which is pretty cool, right? It adds on to your spells known. It doesn't count against your spells known, and that's really good. So we're already kind of limited in how many spells we get, and so the quality of these spells can really help us out, even if they are already on our list. So let's take a look at our list here. We get Charm Person at level 3, Misty Step at level 5, Dispel Magic at level 9, Dimension Door at 13, and Mislead at 17. I don't think any of these are bad. I think that all 5 of these are really great spells, honestly. Charm Person is interesting because we normally, of course, are not going to be the face of the party, right? But Charm Person gives us advantage on charisma checks against those that have failed this. So that means that we can really influence other creatures even if our charisma isn't the best here. So that makes complete sense to me on a kit like this. Misty Step is always going to be a good thing. There's never a situation where Misty Step is bad. Bonus action, being able to teleport, amazing. Never going to be a bad thing. Dispel Magic, it's always good to have that in the back pocket. It really is. You never know when something like this is going to come up. Somebody's affecting your ally with like a slow spell or something particularly nasty. Maybe it's some kind of environmental effect that needs to be turned off. Dispel Magic is great. So that's a really good one. Dimension Door, one of the best teleportation spells in the game. And Mislead is a good one for having in your pocket as well. A lot of people don't take Mislead because you don't really think about it, but having it here is really nice, actually. So honestly, I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. This is a really good list for the Ranger. The Ranger already has some pretty good stuff, but all of these are great additions, and I don't see anything wrong with any of them, honestly. Finally, at level 3, yeah, we get 3 features at level 3, which is great. We get Otherworldly Glamour, and what this does is it allows us to add our Wisdom modifier whenever we make a Charisma check, which is pretty cool. We also get proficiency in Deception, Performance, or Persuasion. That's pretty cool, right? So again, we were talking about being able to kind of weasel your way in and out of these conversations. Even if your charisma isn't that great, you can now add your wisdom modifier to it, and your wisdom's probably gonna be decent, right? So I mean, effectively you're looking at, you know, depending on your method of stats, you could end up with an effective, you know, 16, 18, even 20 if you're combining them together, depending on where your stats are, looking at them combined on charisma checks. Now, obviously this doesn't work on like charisma saving throws or anything like that. It's only ability checks that have to do with charisma, but still, then you get advantage when you look at something like Charm Person, which we just got with our expanded spell list. So this works really well with that too. So it's all working together as a cohesive kit, which are things that I really like to see. And again, here, you know, I get comments a lot about me being focused only on things that are in battle. This has nothing to do with battle for the most part, but it's still great. I think that there's a lot going on that's really good here. I've got to give this a 9 out of 10. This is really good. I don't think I can quite give it a 10, but it's still really, really nice. And being able to add that onto those checks can make a huge difference for any of you who have made a very poor deception check or poor persuasion check in a key moment. You know just how pivotal of a moment that it can be, and it can make the difference between having to go through a huge fight or not and getting maybe a big reward or not. It can affect a lot of different things, and so being able to have that bonus is really, really nice. At level 7, we get Beguiling Twist, and this gives us a couple of things. Number 1, we get advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. In addition to that, whenever a creature that we can see within 120 feet of us succeeds on a saving throw against being charmed or frightened, we can use our reaction to force a different creature to make that saving throw again, except this time against our spell save throw DC. If that fails, then the target is going to be charmed or frightened by us for 1 minute. And of course, it can repeat the save at the end of each of its turns. So let's talk about these separately, right? There are 2 different things here that are both really nice, right? So starting off, we have advantage on saving throws against charm or frighten. So for one thing, this creates an interesting, it's not really a problem, I guess, but a lot of times when you're thinking of an archetype like this, you're going to want to think of something that's elven, right? A lot of people want to play the elven ranger, especially when it has to do with the Feywild, right? You think of the Eladrin, right? That makes complete sense here. But elves already get advantage on saving throws against charm and frighten, which is interesting. So you kind of end up with a bit of a rub there. Not that it's a bad thing. Being able to have advantage on charm or frighten effects by level 7 is fantastic, is if it doesn't come with your racial already. So I'm not complaining. That's a very good thing, because those are both pretty nasty conditions, especially if you are a really hard hitter or a really smooth talker, which you now are. So that can definitely be can be really nice. We also can now bounce around fear and charmed effects as long as it happens nearby. I say nearby, it's 120 feet. That's very generous, so I don't think that's ever going to be a problem. But we basically are now able to bounce them around. So if someone succeeds on the effect, it doesn't say whether that's an ally or an enemy, so really doesn't matter. So as long as something fails that save, then we can redirect it and force a different creature to make that save as well. So that definitely can come up. But we run into some issues here, and here's what I want to kind of go over and why this isn't as good as what it kind of sounds. This sounds amazing on paper, by the way. Like when I first read this, I was like, man, this is really powerful. But there's a bit of an issue here. Number one, we are waiting on something else to force a charmed or frightened effect, right? And so typically the way you would think about this is, you know, you have this creature, it is forcing one of your allies to be charmed or frightened, and your ally succeeds, right? Then you bounce that back. So the first problem is that a lot of creatures that wield charm and frighten effects are also ones that are immune to those same effects. So for that reason, you're going to have a separate creature in most cases to target, because the actual attacker itself is immune. Now, of course, there are plenty of exceptions to this. Of course, you could have maybe the enemy has a weapon that forces a fear effect or something like that, but the creature itself is not immune. That would be fine. So yeah, I'm not saying that it's impossible for this to happen, but it is somewhat unlikely, because like I said, most creatures that use these effects are also immune to those set effects. So you got to have something else there. So even if you have another target around you at 120 feet, which again is good, then that creature then still has to fail a save. And it's against your spell saving throw DC. And remember, you're quite mad because you have to have dex for your attacks most of the time, and then wisdom for your spell saves and your spell bonus and everything else. So it may then succeed its saving throw, in which case this does nothing. So to me, there's just a lot of moving parts, and it's clunky and it slows the game down. And I don't think in a lot of ways it's going to work out the best. So I don't think it's quite as good as what it sounds on paper. Is it terrible? No, but I just don't think that it's going to come up as often as it seems. That's just me. If you've had different experiences at your table, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to know. But to me, this just seems unlikely to really go off a lot of the time. For that reason, I've got to give this a 7 out of 10. Like I said, getting advantage on Charm and Frighten is great, but it's being dragged down by the second part of this, which I just don't think is going to come up all that much. At level 11, we get Fey reinforcements, and this is super cool. We basically just get a free spell with some twists. With this, we get the Summon Fey spell, and this is already a fantastic spell. We talked about this actually quite a bit last week. Yet again, I already did an iCard for this, so if you didn't check that out before, go back and check that out, because it's really good. But Summon Fey is a really nice spell, both for just dealing extra damage, but also for the utility it provides. It does both, and it's actually a really nice spell. So it doesn't count against the number of ranger spells that you have, and you can cast it without material components. That's great. We can cast it once without using a spell slot, and of course then we get that back at the end of a long rest. But of course we can use spell slots beyond this if we want to. The kicker here, though, is whenever we start casting the spell, we can modify it so that it does not require concentration. And if we do so, the duration becomes 1 minute for that casting. That is great. I love this spell. I think Summon Fey is a fantastic spell that people don't take enough. Is it taken a lot? Decently, but I still don't think it's taken enough, because it's really good. It's a really nice summon spell. Being able to have a summon that is not based on concentration, though, is insanely good, because that means you can't drop concentration on it, meaning your summon doesn't go away. But also Summon Fey is one of the better summon spells. It's just a really good spell. Like I said, it does decent damage. It does actually pretty good damage for a summon spell. But on top of that, it also has a lot of other utility that it can go through, and that's super helpful. But think about it, right? You can cast this once without using a spell slot or anything and have that out. You then could cast this again and have one that is on concentration and have 2 of these things out. That's pretty nasty. Or you could have any of the other pretty good, honestly, ranger concentration based spells. There are plenty of great options for that. And so that's really helpful, being able to essentially focus on 2 at once. Kind of a cheat code, but I really like it. Yeah, I really don't have a lot of bad to say about this. I think that it's an absolutely fantastic spell to pick up, and being able to do it without concentration, that just takes out basically the main and only drawback of this spell. 10 out of 10. Great 11th level feature, to be honest with you. I absolutely love this, and I think you're going to get a ton of mileage out of it. It's deceivingly good. Finally, at level 15, we get Misty Wanderer, and this basically gives us a buff to Misty Step, one of the best 2nd level spells in the game. So when we get access to this at level 15, we can now cast the Misty Step spell without using a spell slot a number of times per day equal to our Wisdom modifier, and we get that back whenever we finish a long rest. In addition, whenever we do cast this spell, we can bring 1 creature along with us as long as it is willing, and it teleports, of course, to within 5 feet of you. Again, this is fantastic. Misty Step is one of the best spells in the game for teleportation, for maneuverability. It's just so good. Being able to bring someone with you, again, it makes me think of the Eladrin, right? The Eladrin gets something that is very similar to this, being able to teleport and bring someone with you. And so, you know, you're basically getting a lot of the Eladrin features off the rip for just being that race, but then you can be any race you want and kind of combine those things, which is really cool. But being able to cast Misty Step 4 or 5 times a day, hopefully at this point, is really potent, because that's one of the best spells. The only drawback is that you have to use up spell slots in order to do it, and this lets you do it a bunch for free, which is amazing. That's a 10 out of 10 for me. Again, this is super great. Yeah, it's late at level 15, but and it is only buffing a 2nd level spell, but because Misty Step is so good, I can't really give it any lower of a rating. So what do we think of this subclass? This is a surprisingly really good subclass. Like I said, when Tasha's first came out, I kind of skipped this one. I didn't think that it was going to be anything impactful. But now, like, looking back on it, and I've taken a little bit of a look at it now that my group and I have been playing through Wild Beyond the Witchlight, so, you know, Feywild has been on my mind. But this subclass is really cool. You know, a lot of people talk about certain subclasses. I'm not going to mention what they are yet to spoil any of my rankings, but, you know, when you talk about Ranger, there are a few that come up that are, you know, clearly the best ones. I don't hear a lot of talk about this one. Like, I know it's a few people's like niche favorite, but this is really good, actually. I really like this. Yeah, there are some mediocre things in there here and there, but for the most part, it's really nice. And it only gets better as you go, right? The dreadful strikes are a little underwhelming on damage, but ultimately it is what it is. Free damage. You get some great extra spells. Your otherworldly glamour lets you actually be a really good face of the party. I mean, Beguiling Twist, even though the second part of it's not that great, the advantage on saving throws against Charm and Frighten is really good. And then Fey Reinforcements and Misty Wanderer are insanely good. Now, obviously, I can't put as much stock into the level 11 and 15 features just because most people will not get to that level. So that's a little unfortunate. But so with that, looking at everything, I think this is a 9 out of 10. I think it is an absolutely fantastic subclass that I think pretty much everybody should try. I think that there are other ones that get a lot more attention than this one, but it's pretty darn good, and I really like this. So that's our ranking. Let me know what you think down below. Am I too high, too low? Just let me know. I'd love to know what you think down in the comments section below. Later this week, we're going to be building one on Friday and Saturday. Of course, we have our week 4 battle in the UNPL Pokemon Draft League. Make sure to check those videos out. I don't get nearly enough support on those, and I work really hard on those. It's basically fantasy football, but for Pokemon. It's a lot of fun. So check that out as well. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Stay safe out there. Stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.